lines, high center locations, and high settings, processing and connections. Lines and networks, directing lines and modification grounds. We have to modify the position, location, its measure, and scale now. In the process communication system, you're going to see me glitching, right? Because we're getting ready and travel to mine, convert the system location and setting. It's the inception location, alpha, mega, and micro, macro. That's where everybody comes into setting lines of travel. But understand the awareness of its consciousness puts air location to its female polarity, to position of its male polarity. Process of communication sending lines of 3 lines of flux, 4 lines of signals, set lines of 12 lines of measure, and scale position of 24,000 lines, 24 ground communication sending at 24 clockings. Sending communication high center location networks, know exactly how to use that in the modification of your space modulation screens, and direct signals and track locations, your auxiliaries and locations your inhibitors. Now, that communicates setting, it's out of line communications. The mind has to get out of memory of everything to understand the process of everything. Okay, so it's like I'm communicating with you, but I'm also communicating with everybody else all at once. You know, the clocking settings and position. The clocking system is a pi line. A pi line is a process communication where it comes in track centers and locations to a system, all through seconds, all through minutes, all through all levels and hours, and days, and months, and years. So when you're communicating with yourself and each other already through pi, okay? That position lines of high travels and tractions, okay? So in today, lines of high centers and screen adaptation of service. There will be no Q&A because I got a FYI screen adaptations on levels. Rapido, line position lines of travel. Getting out in the equation, same position lines of travel. All right, so we have direct lines of flux over 3, setting lines of 3 centers and 3 tractions. 3 communication lines of 3 over lines of 6 over 9. Set 3 lines of 6, all right? So 3 goes inside, 6 goes inside, and 9 goes inside in traction. Okay, 3, 6, 9. Now we go through the primers and 3 lines of signals. Process lines of high center location of 1 center and volume, direct signal and grounds. Setting lines of flux, locations and positions, all right? Female cycle. Male cycle is top line screen adaptation. Process calculation of lines, ground lines of surface, and set position to its operation set track location. Okay? That's how it's going to be set up. All right, so we set lines in voice line grids, setting patterns, process communication lines of triangulation. Okay? Overline patterns, overline sequence, overline communications. All right? Setting core lines, down signal, line connection, high centers. Process lines indicates setting overline sequence and pattern in track communications. So the I-line center sets the position of center operation system, which is the center point of 144. Okay? 144 in track. This is what's going to happen in line positional levels. 6 a.m. tomorrow on the screen. All right, so tomorrow is the teleportation lines in the operation line core centers, the 2 relays, core center lines, and 9 position location and travels, directed signal lines, operation location and its width, streaming line direct signals, ground lines of surface attractions. And then we go through high core centers and platforms of communication. And then we go through high charge mechanism lines and platform communication lines of screens. So we open up the panels over 6, set lines of position of 6 over 3, platforms of setting of travel. Then we open up the 3 line signals into Stargate position lines of 24 measure. Scales communication high centers, process lines as rainbow graph, and set position of its center graph, and decentralized system location to its setting to travel. Directing lines of grounds, it's very powerful stuff. Now, what you have to understand, the track location system has the ground lines, setting communication high centers, and position location of Asgard. Asgard in sequence, patterns 1, patterns 2, and patterns 3, and patterns 4 over 7 over flux. Asgard. All right, so setting signals, we get a ground lines of service. Now we override the system in 3 tractions, 3 direct signals and platform. Okay? Then we go with the high centers, crossing line of angles in a 4-line communication, directing lines of grounds. This goes into 1 signal, 1 traction, 1 division, 1 location system. All right? Then we cross angle. I know it's getting complicated, right? So this overrides the triangulation flux in a 3-line angle and set position lines of travel. There it is. There's Asgard. All right? But look, you see it from down this way, coming up. There's the platform going across, right? There's the building down, right? So you guys start here. This is humanity and point lines of tractions, right? That's humanity going up in center position. That's Asgard, right? So if you look at it really closely, you can actually see how this is all set up in tractions, how it comes in position 144. Setting lines, communication lines at 24,000 lines in frame position of 24 dimensions with space and time. Puts all communications and sending lines of service and tractions. All right. Now, director lines of grounds, the position lines of the team will be here in signal and set tractions. The team will be here and humanity will be here. Okay. So basically, you come into high course centers, lines, and line position location, your settings and travels introducing. High communication sending to mind's eye, lines interpretation system. Welcome. Here you are. You get your manual, understand your instructions, what's going on with your game level, how to play the game, the instructions how to play the game, the characters and the players they bring inside the game set position. All right. That's how it's all going to be set up. 6 a.m. All right. Now, coming in Asgard, there's 3 lines of bridging. Okay, set lines of Rainbow, Frost Bridge, and the Golden Bridge. That's all going to be put together now in unison. All right, that's 1 signal, 1 modification, 1 set position, 1 tower. That 1 tower puts all lines of high course centers in position to its galactic hub that sets line course centers and neutralizations and travel and communication to point lines of graph and calculation setting. All right, so in that line position locations, once they get in here, okay, they climb up and set tractions. They climb up and they get into the center point and set position, right there, right from here to here, right? All right, so from there, all signals comes into the Earth. Earth line signals, process calculation lines to its evac and set position, right? Setting course centers, line direct signals, ground lines of settings, 45 lines of flux, and 40 lines set location lines and versions of flux. There's the eye, right? See the eye? Complicated stuff. All right, then we travel point lines of graph and a star line screen. Directing lines of 4 lines, communication setting to travel communications. There it is in tractions. Very powerful stuff, guys. All right, very powerful stuff. All right, so we set flux screens and direct lines of ground lines, setting lines of sequence lines of dimensional doors. See the doors inside position? All right, so there's 3 central doors they go through. Now, 3 central doors is the Rainbow, the Frost Bridge, and the Golden Bridge put together and tither. The attachment screen lines adaptation sets a flux screen line adaptation center to center line position to surface. Setting track lines in ceiling lines and graph communication setting high lines attractions. Okay? Remember, it's a 4-waving panel and communication lines of grounds and set tractions. Okay? So they go through upswing lines, high center interference, high direct signal locations into 24,000 sending lines of travels. Okay, in grounds and 24 clocking system. Okay, that puts all communications sending in their tractions. All right, 24 paradigms into 144 into the mind's eye. Okay, so the position lines has an upswing. Now the core line centers is the platform swing. Get in that communication lines, high lines of signals into its platform in communication system all through central settings. Earth line 1, point lines of tractions. So let's get into the green, overline sequence, overline communications. Start with that, right? The forestry. Then we get in position lines of the water sequence, the water containment screen, directing signal lines of grounds into mind modification screen line adaptations of interception setting to 3 lines of 4 over flux. Setting course centers. We go into the brown line. Now the brown course centers lines its ether course center lines of determinant locations of mother, setting trunk lines of father, and set track communications setting earth line communications. There's the earth. All right, so the central line earth, that's set position to its my mainframe. Mainframe course lines is communication to its high frame. Setting lines is central frame, location to its master domain. Master domain comes in high signals, high probability, process in line communication setting into all travels. Setting course centers lines Earth line 1, Earth line 3, Earth line 4, point lines attractions, indirect signals of 6 over line. So you have 6 habitation zones, okay, and you have 6 inhabitation zones. So that's the inner strength to the inner core to the inner realm. Sets lines of course centers to the outer strength, the outer realm. Okay, so understanding that communication setting and travels puts lines of point lines of graph and the center course system. Now the center system changes all levels of ground lines of surface interactions. Okay, so the high lines of signals, mind modificates the ground lines of Fibonacci grounds and set tractions, direct signal. Okay, now basically comes in line grounds. We have the course centered lines of awareness, so consciousness. We flick the switch, we turn off the switch, we turn back on the switch, comes in position 0.1. Sets lines of earth line, point lines 1 traction, directing lines of earth point lines of 2 tractions into 3 over 4, question it over volume. The vast velocity in the vacuum puts everything in line, position, location, measure, and scale. The process of communication setting. Now, this is where we take everybody out of snowy graph interference into box frames and tractions. There's the box frame, Snowy graph interference and setting. Okay, snowy graph. Okay, so we got 3 angles in setting, process lines of 2/3 tractions. Okay, and then we modify the high centers lines of ground lines as surface and track communications. Okay, then we go into the panel core center and travel communications, directing lines and settings, process lines, cross line angles as space and time, split lines of anomaly, 4 track lines and high position of polarity, 4 signals and grounds, setting core centers into a diamond core shift line and process to the eye window screen adaptations of setting and travel. Okay. So communicates the high centers and lines of travel in communication system through an open eye sequence and high position of panel 3 receptor, directing signals lines inside and outline core centers. See the brown line sequence? Those are your floaters inside your eye. That's going to have a high core centers that's going to change the metric core system to your eyes and the coloration light patterns. The coloration patterns change all communication eye line settings. So you come into your full, true, authentic self and coloration lines of lines in communication eye receptors, line position in earth line tones, space line tones, measure core center line connection to window frames, high track core lines in position at all levels, flux over screen, intent over setting, high operation of its window frame track location setting, eye receptor line screen adaptations, pyramid screen adaptation, in and outline circuit, audio input, line position, any line rotations, high track relates to high position of third line screen, direct lines of 6/3/2. Sending lines of high position over lines of measure, scales communication, high lines of force and track communications. All right, that's going to happen inside your eye through your floaters. Okay, so as it changes the colors, it changes the dimension lines of scale. It changes the inner core to the outer core to inner spectrum. The inner spectrum changes the core centers, line track centers. This comes in all communication lines of 12 foundation grounds, setting position locations. Now with the team line screen, they're going to be in line position location and measure and scale at 144 paradigms, shift line communication lines in nanoseconds, split lines of cycle. Sets communication lines at ground lines of service, setting core lines of travels, puts your eyes in actual set position location of the system. So this really connects all levels of Pinocchio and Petunia. Remember, the set position lines all levels, reproducing the reproduction system, anything X, Y, Z, or anything the chromosome location system has to have female, male, okay, to have a reproduced location to its reproduction. Setting lines of track centers is a computer framing. Now we have a direct line link. We set lines of core centers, lines of travel. Setting lines of pink. Pink overrides the brown. Change the light signals, grounds, lines of the sun in position of the moon being cores, lines of travel, and set track location to a system. Change the lines of timelines in sequence. Remember, this is all done through the eye line. Mind inception line, core centers, then we go into the purple. Purple overrides the pink, sets lines of travels in 3 lines of forward flux, 3 screens, directing lines of grounds, and center core system of the eye center and travel communications. Setting line direct signals, the ground lines of service, set lines of orange. Now the orange comes core center linking high centers. Process calculation lines in high travels, setting communication setting into tractions, directing the modification lines into Fibonacci screen, adaptations all levels, and set tractions. So 12 lines of communications. Then we get in position lines of high centers. We get into high core centers. Then we go into cloak and dagger. Now cloak and dagger sets lines, core centers, line communication, and Andromeda. Andromeda sets lines, core centers, and lines of travel. Point lines of settings. Process lines of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7 track communications. Remember, they're floaters that come in your eye center. All right, so setting lines of high positions, lines of 8. 8 lines of tractions over 9, in position of 12, and set position of center lines of 24 in tractions and direct signal. Setting ground lines, set lines of north, east, west, and south in travel communications. Setting ground lines of 1, pi lines of 2, process lines of 3, and process lines of 4 traction, all through the eye setting. Okay, so we shift the anomaly and align direct signals and grounds, setting offline signals, inline rotation, surface and tractions, inside traction in set position. Hooah! Simulation. The mind interpretation setting. So in that core centers, we change the core center lines of tubing, setting ground lines of center inside location to inside position, inside tractions right there, right? Signal lines of 1, signal lines of 3, over cross lines of circle lines of 4 in tractions, right? Directing signals, ground lines of service, arrow indicates lines of north line, setting core lines at earth line, set lines of space line, and position lines of high position location and space line communications. Have a direct line link, process communication light codes, high core centers. Now there's a gold signal and 1/3 graph, 3 lines of signals, 4 lines of measure, and 12 lines of measure, and 24 signal locations sending a travel. Sending core centers, indirect signals, and grounds, and over sequence in pi and generates the screen lines of high setting. That's your eye. See the window? There's the window. There's your eye. Right? Center core system comes in traction. There's the window frame. Right? There's the sun. There's the moon. Together in traction. All right? All right, so we set a window frame and line direct signals. So this is what it looks, location set in 6 a.m. There's a window frame inside tractions. Now, directing lines of grounds, open line signals, and panel and process communications, all through the simulation. All right? So I'm just showing you exactly how this is going to be set up through the eye centers and set position lines of travel, all through your eye sector. Your eye screen contains all communication lines, comes into set position to interline settings and travel. Metric meters of scale, balance communication line measure. Scales communication lines, and we add a blue line signal. It's set position of center. Then we add the position lines of high core centers, the earth lines, and position lines of green lines of center. Sets tractions, and we go in position lines of brown. Sets lines of 3/4, 7 lines of 6 over lines, setting high position lines of 12, setting ground lines of set track communication setting, all through measure and scale. Process calculates green lines, puts all communication lines to earth tones, and set position of 3 lines of communications. Right? Open all signals, open modification grounds. All right? That's the coloration in your eye that's changing. So 6 a.m., you guys will be in your position lines of tractions into your actual eye, where it's supposed to be in position to its earth, into its mind, its perception, into the imagination of its core. The center core system puts lines of the female polarity and the male polarity and balance of communication setting of 6 and 9 tractions. All right, so sets lines, sets communication lines, sets free lines into high core centers lines of travel, directing lines of link, processing communication lines of grounds, and center communication setting high lines of surface. Done by equation. That's it. We're done. Okay? That's what's going to happen in traction. Okay, with your eyes. Your eyes are going to be in the center settings and position all levels that tracks its communication lines of its window frame. You open all signals, your eyes will be actually where it's supposed to be in the set position lines of travel. Okay? So in that lines of course centers, that's it through equation. So hope you guys get a true understanding of what's happening to your eye lines. Your receptors and changes communication lines of high positions can open all signals. Line condition to its mind interpretation set to your inner child. Okay? There will be no Q&A. I got to go in sequence. All right? You guys have a wonderful day. Adios. And I'm done.